This is CPM Precalculus Chapter 3, number 90. So here we're asked to graph f of x is equal to log base 5 of 2 plus x, and also determine the domain and range. Alright, so for some of you it might be easier to graph exponentials than logarithms, but I'm going to show you one process to make it pretty much the same thing. So if we start with, let's start with h of x, and say that's equal to 5 to the x power. And I'm using 5 here because base 5 in the logarithm, so I want the base in our exponential to also be 5. Okay, we can graph this one easily, right? We can pull out our calculator, plug this in, and see what it looks like, right? Then to go from h of x equals 5 to the x, we can go ahead and graph g of x is equal to log base 5 of x. Okay, and we could do this by, so this one, let me write that down. We could just do our calculator or by memory or whatever. And this one we can go ahead and do by looking at the reflection. It's the same as the reflection of h of x. Reflection of h of x across the line y is equal to x. And why is that? Because this function here is the same thing as the inverse function of h of x. Okay? And then we can go ahead and get f of x then by, if you notice this, the input here is just x plus 2, right? 2 plus x is the same as x plus 2. So we can go ahead and get f of x then by looking at this graph, and since we're adding 2 in the parentheses, that means we're shifting left or right, right? And since it's plus 2, that means shifting, right? We can get this by shifting g of x left 2 units. Okay? So let's go ahead and do this in 3 stages. Okay? It won't take that long. Let's go ahead and graph h of x here. And I'm going to even use my calculator just to show you how simple this is. Let's say y equals, let's change this to 5 to the power of x, right? Graph it. And we see this shape, right? I'm going to draw it right here. And it looks just like this, right? And I'm going to even trace it because I know as x is 0, y is 1. So this point right here is 0, 1. And if I go ahead and reflect this across the line right here, I'm drawing the line y is equal to x. If I reflect it, so remember this is h of x here. If I reflect it across this line, we're going to get g of x, right? So let's go ahead and get g of x. That's just going to be the reflection across the line. So this point becomes the point 1, 0, and it's going to be, let me draw it a little better, like this, right? This is just the reflection of all these points across the line y is equal to x in between. So right here we have g of x. And finally, f of x, right, the one we want to draw, is just going to be here in red. I'm going to draw f of x. We're going to shift it left 2 units. Okay, so this point right here at 1, 0 moves 1, 2 units. So it's going to be here at negative 1, 0. Okay, and it's going to go like this. Doesn't have to go that high, and like this. Okay, another thing to notice, if you remember that g of x right now doesn't cross the y-axis, right? It never will cross this line. I'm talking about g of x. So the other thing to notice is this vertical line that it won't cross, which is right now the y-axis, also moves to the left 2 units. So the invisible line now that f of x doesn't cross is not at the y-axis, but it's 2 units to the left. So it's not at 0, but it's negative 1, negative 2. So over here at negative 2 value for x, we have a vertical asymptote. Okay? So there is the sketch right here in red of f of x. And now let's go ahead and talk about the domain and range. Okay, so the domain, so let me write f of x here in red so we know blue refers to h of x, green is g of x, and red is f of x. So the domain of f of x, okay, we're scanning from left to right using vertical lines, and where do we eventually run into and intercept our function f of x? So it's after the line, or after the vertical line at x is equal to -2, right? So starting at -2 and everywhere to the right, we have output values. So our domain is going to start at -2 and go to the right to positive infinity. It never includes infinity, and here it will not touch or cross this line, so it's going to be an open parentheses. The range, again, we're looking at horizontal lines from down to up, and we're going to always hit our line. Okay, again, this end is going up and to the right, so we go from -infinity to positive infinity for our range. Alright, so there's f of x, and there's our domain and range of f of x, and that's going to end for us CPM Precalculus Chapter 3, number 90.